Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining the Walt Weekly Podcast. We really appreciate you. In today's show, we will continue with our series on the Hotchkiss GO Program that they reached out to inner city youths to bring them into one of the top private schools in the country. Actually, the Hotchkiss School is number 2. This way all your rich people went, a lot of them, you know what I mean? You got captains of industry like DuPont and the rest of them. But I know our guests will get into that. We're so proud to have him on the show today, a representative or a benefactor, a beneficiary, rather, of the Hotchkiss GO Program. And that is Mr. Lawrence Williams. And thank you, Mr. Williams, for being with us today by our co-host, Mrs. Bridget Stokes out of North Carolina. My niece, my fam. So welcome, Bridget.
Thank you.
All righty. And then let's go with, we have Mr. Lawrence Williams on the program today. This is our third of a series of interviews with members or participants or beneficiaries of the Hotchkiss program. All right. With that said, I will just briefly give some overview or some background on Mr. Lawrence Williams. He's a lifetime resident of Hartford, Connecticut. He attended the GO program at Hotchkiss between 1965 and 67. All right, the GO program stands for Greater Opportunity. Okay, and Larry attended after leaving the Hotchkiss School, and he went there for a couple of years. He attended Albany State College in Albany, Georgia, an HBCU school. And you were there on a scholarship. And he returned to Hartford and applied for a job at USPS, where he remained for 40 years, actively fighting for fairness, equality, and for workers as a steward for 2 national labor unions. So now I'd like to turn it over to Larry so he can, tell us about himself and give us a little insight into his experiences at Hotchkiss and what that meant to him in his life. So, Larry, welcome to the Walt Weekly.
Oh, good morning, Walt and Bridget. And I appreciate you giving me the time to be here to explain what the GO program meant to me, how it impacted the people in the city, and how I think it transformed my path into being an advocate for people in the city. You mentioned that I do a lot of stuff in the
right
in the labor force. I try and become active in any environment that I'm exposed to. Because if the forces around me control me, I don't have a sense of control, and that's one of my constant points in life. Let's put it that way. I have to try to find control because things come at you, and so with me, I try and diminish as many things coming at me outside of my control as possible. So, but getting back to who I am, like Walt mentioned, I grew up in Hartford. I went to the GO program. I was one of the initial recruits, and I definitely one of the initial recruits out of Hartford due to my circumstances, I believe, and the contacts, the relationships I had formed with the school system, with the community, with some of my teachers. I don't know if you know what Hartford means. It's a natural inner city. Anybody could call it the other side of the tracks. The wrong side of the road, the far country.
Yeah,
but
well, we could say it's a black neighborhood.
There you go. Let's make it simple. It's a black neighborhood.
Yeah, railroad tracks separate the black from the white.
The have and the have-nots. Yeah, the have and the have-nots. So
there you go. There you go.
There were a lot of have-nots in my neighborhood. It was the north end of Hartford. We call it North Hartford. But Hartford is polarized. It's separated into different sections for different cultures. And we have an Italian section. We got a French section. We got a Hispanic section. At the time in the 60s was just mostly Puerto Ricans, but now it's being internationalized, globalized. You got people from all over the world. And when the program first started, there was a lot of change going on in Hartford. Hartford, as being a black neighborhood, the focus on education was gearing you towards getting a labor job, being a laborer. We didn't have any professionals in our neighborhood other than the top professional was the preacher. So
the teacher, also the teacher.
the preacher and the preacher, the teacher, and the undertaker.
There you go. Yep.
That was it. Yep. That's the type of environment that we had in Hartford in the North End in the 60s. And I'm a product of that. The school system, like I said, was gearing you towards getting a job in industry. Elevator operators at the time. If you were lucky enough, you can get a job in one of New England's premier retail stores, G. Fox and Company. It was, that was, if you got a job in there as a black person, you were upper class or elitist or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, so those are my roots.
Yeah.
And so when Father Kern came to my school, which was let me explain how Hartford set up again for the school system. In the North End of Hartford, which is again the poor neighborhoods, we had a mixture of Irish people, Italians, second generation that didn't own too much. We had an area at the time we called the Bottom.
Right.
People with immigrants mostly would come in there. Yeah, we called it the Bottom.
We had the Bottom too, man.
We called it the Bottom.
We had a place called the Bottom.
And people, and they had shanty town, shanty buildings and all of that there.
Yeah.
And
like we all going downhill when you go in that neighborhood.
Oh, from us it was from the river. You were walking up from the river. We had the river.
Yeah.
That was the 60s, and a lot of people were transplanted from my parent, my mother anyway. She's from Georgia. She came out during the Great Migrations of the 40s, and following her husband, they stopped in Harlem, New York, but they'll get more work.
Yes,
because of the farming industry that was in Connecticut. A lot of them came here, and at the same time, a lot of people were coming in from Europe. Refugees from World War II. Running from hard times in their native lands. They were coming here looking for a better future.
Yeah.
And my mother came here looking for a better future and to get away from Jim Crow. Because she was a product of a black male and a Native American woman. Mm-hmm. So she had it on two sides. She was being oppressed by same oppressor, but two different cultures. And she imparted in me some of the Indian culture.
Wow.
She imparted in me some of the black culture, So that made me what I am. And what I'm trying to say is, as a black male in America, you become a product of your environment. Whatever environment you put in, just like anything else that grows, a plant, flower. You put it in good soil, it's going to do better. You give it no sunshine, it's going to do better. You take it out of inferior conditions and put it in so-called superior conditions, and it should flourish. That's what Hotchkiss was to me, the GO program. It took us out of one environment, it took us into another environment.
All right, now I have some questions around Hotchkiss. Now, Hotchkiss is one of the most prestigious finishing/boarding schools between, I guess, first grade and 12th grade in the country, right? Yeah, some of the leaders of industry, such as the DuPonts, a lot of these politicians. I don't want to go into names, but suffice it to say that it's one of the most. It's a pathway to riches, basically. The people that go through there. I mean, it's a pathway, and they reached out to the inner city school, inner city youth. Could you tell me about how you were contacted and how did you find out about this program and how did you get into that program?
I had a issue with the Hartford school system, like 2 years prior to my being introduced to the pastors, Father Kern. I'll tell you more about Father Kern as I developed this. we moved a lot being poor. We went from one housing project to another, from neighborhood to another. And so I got a report card and I had A's and B's. And the teacher said, there's no black kid in the North End that's smart. So she wouldn't give me my report card. And I happened to have a fourth grade. She did it. I had to go to the Board of Education to get my report card. And I had a fourth grade teacher. She was from Virginia. And her name was Miss Hurley. And her husband was a prominent person in the community. And she fought the fight for me to get my report card. And so one of the board members wanted me tested to see, I had A's and B's. I had like a 4.0, in some terms. Back then we had A's and B's and comments, but I was excelling in
wait a minute.
all areas.
Wait a minute, Larry.
And
why did they not give you your report card? Because,
she kept it back.
People used to be afraid to get their report card.
Because she was in charge. She was authority. Back then, we had people in authority in Hartford that didn't look like me. Some of them had a grudge against people like me because, like I said, people that came to this country, they were all different immigrants and stuff. They all had their own culture. The only thing that kept us together as a community, they were all poor. So, as you made a little bit more, you made your inroads into the American dream, you push somebody down and make you feel better than the next person. So and in the 60s, we had just come out of the 50s, where there was a lot of change going on in this country. The new civil rights laws were being passed. The civil rights law in 65. Black people are marching for the ability to sit down at Woolworths and, taking bus rides, fighting for civil rights, for housing, education, whatever. So the people that were so-called above us, like in Hartford's case, was the Jews and the Irish ones in the North End. They had made it up to that area. No.
Yes.
My school was going through transition. There were more blacks moving in and were more whites moving out in Hartford. I'm comparing Hartford to Hotchkiss.
So you didn't go to an all-black school, right?
Their focus wasn't on educating; it was on discipline.
I'm sorry.
I'm in charge. I'm the boss. And again, because of the cultures, the Irish and the English, they have parochial schools. A lot of parochial schools were in Hartford.
Really?
The Board of Education was small compared to the parochial schools. So they teaching black kids from the South about catechism. When they left area, they were talking about baptism, So you have that was part of your test to show that you were, able to do something. Show me something that I have no idea what you're talking about. So there was a lot of the education system was those parochial nuns being transferred into the public school system. The blacks being moved into the classes now, where they're starting to become the majority in the North End, and it's so a majority in the school systems in the North End. So they were teaching us again, just for jobs, like it was discipline was more important than education. You got to be on time.
Right.
You only get so many absences before you lose a grade point. If you act up, you're going to lose another grade point. If you got a C average, you're going to get a D. That was the atmosphere. That's the way it is for the effort. Yeah, but at the same time, if you make the effort, and because life happens, why should you get penalized?
That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. That means you're not putting the effort.
Your mother got you to work later. You had to get your brothers and sisters to school or whatever, and you come in late, and the teacher, punishes you for it, and it affects your grade, which affects your class record. Right. All these things was the environment. Not saying it was widespread, but it was widespread. As I found out as I got older, a lot of people went through the same thing in the inner cities, and not only in Hartford, but around the country.
Okay, now tell me, Larry, how did you get your invitation? I know I heard about with Dr. Woodbine and Noel Ellison, the first two interviews that we did with y'all guys, that, Father Kearns, all right, was like the recruiter. He went out and he found people for the program. Did you ever meet Father Kearns? Is that the way you got, you first heard of it?
Yes. I met Father Kern when I was called to the office, and there was a preacher there. I don't want to say preacher, but it was a priest there with a man in a black suit with a white collar, and he introduced himself to me. He said he was going to change my life, if I accepted it. But they were having a program to send on people that were able to compete to this program at Hotchkiss, the GO Program.
Okay.
And my guidance counselor or one of the teachers, somebody in the background said, Larry will be a good candidate for that program.
Ah, okay.
So if I accept it. So I said, yes, I'll go. What's to lose? Any exposure, any experiences to me is a learning experience.
Yes.
That's how I wound up looking at life after a while. So he took myself and maybe 4 or 5 of the top guys in my school, or maybe at least 10 guys in my school, just the top. And we all had to go home and tell our parents we met this priest that was going to do something. So he got us all together and he talked to whoever was a homemaker in your house. And again, for me, it was my sister, my mother died when I was 7, so I had no parents. But my sister took care of me and my young 2 sisters because of the way the social structure was. We were on welfare. And anyway, so she was my guardian. She agreed for me to go.
Okay.
I didn't particularly want to go to Hotchkiss because I wanted to get a job. It was a rite of passage in Hartford. When you turn 14, you can work the tobacco field during the summer.
Oh, when you're talking about down south?
You can in Hartford,
Connecticut?
No, Hartford. Yeah, a lot of people from the South would come up here for the field work.
Really? Because I'm from North Carolina. I used to work in the fields too for summer, and just to get some money in my pocket.
Yeah, to get that money. I did the exact same thing. I never did it. I wanted to. My sister above me, she did it. My brothers and ahead of me, they did it. They all did it. And we would all, at the time when my mother lied, they'd work the fields and they'd all put their money on the table. And that money contributed to the household.
Wow.
That's my background.
Wow.
So Hartford that's how it was in Hartford. But we were new to the region. You feel me? From the 50s to the 60s, we were new to the region. And when they saw more people coming from the South of color, the people in there were moving out. So,
but you know what the trick is?
The system was being transferred.
You know what the trick is? Larry? Can you hear me? Well, you can hear me okay?
Yes, yes, sir.
The trick is what they do, and I've seen this because I've been out here a long time too, is that they go, the white people move out, black people move in. And then some years later, when it becomes dilapidated due to lack of city support and this and that, they become abandoned. Then the white people move back in. That seems to be, the model that's been going on for the last 10, 15, 20 years, So when they speak about, what's that term they use, for, when you can't afford a neighborhood that you grew up in because, the white people came back and spruced it up and this and that. What do you call that?
The gentrification. Gentrification.
Yeah. So you have one of those.
Gentrification. Oh, gentrification. Yeah, I like that term. Gentrification.
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right, Bob, you have any questions for Larry?
Yes, justification. Well, I am going to add into a conversation when you all was talking about back in the day working. Now, I worked a little bit. I was a little younger than maybe y'all. I worked a little bit, but I went on and found the skills of doing the cooking. So when it's time to eat, I couldn't handle the tobacco the stuff too much, so I just went on to learn how to cook and feed the help. But my question is today, I am very much impressed with everything I've heard so far about you, Larry. And when I was sitting here thinking about our youth today, and my question is, with the issues that we're having in the world today, in this climate in America now, with DEI and all this stuff, how can we even prepare our children to match up now? Everything is taken away from them, or they got in with DEI, and you and I know that a lot of them are brilliant. Our children are brilliant. I mean, they have to work hard to get there, but they are. So how can they, get to that achievement now in this atmosphere, in this time?
Well, I thank you for the question, and I think it's relevant to what we're doing here. We're telling a story about how it was 60 years ago. We're coming up on a 60th anniversary reunion for Hotchkiss, the Greater Opportunity Program, but the circumstances, they've improved, for people of color, people from the inner city, AKA the people of color, because we feel the bottom. But the things that was going on back then are coming back now, 60 years later. The fight's still on. And now it's like they gave you 60 years to get it together, and I think that's enough. If you don't have it together, we're going to get rid of it. We gave you a chance. If you look at how this climate evolved, when we had a black president in 2014, Mitch McConnell says we gave him a black president. What else do they want? And they said they're not going to let him accomplish anything for the people in their conditions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then you had the Freedom Caucus come in and say, well, we got to do something. So, what they're doing now is nothing new. The struggle's still there. We had a few laws, the same laws that allowed me to go to Hotchkiss, the Civil Rights Act, the equal education stuff. That was mandatory. They had to open up the doors to people of color. You had open housing. You couldn't discriminate on housing.
Yeah, but they do that anyway. They do that anyway, though.
Oh, they still do it, yeah, but it's a different cover. It's still relevant today.
Yeah.
So now, Trump is just Trump and his minions are just doing what was already planned for us in this society. Not just saying us, poor people. I've taken some class in economics, and my first concern was when they give you this scale on how everything is supposed to work. I said, we're the poor people. And my teacher says, well, they don't count. They're a constant. They're the constant, but they don't. The changes that you make, you don't worry about how it affects them because they're the constant. You're gonna always have poor people. So any changes you want to make in the world, in economics, anyway, you don't have to consider them. And that's what they're saying now. This is going to be, I don't want to get off code here, but Hotchkiss taught us how to deal with critical thinking and how to look at the whole environment. If you're going to do something, or you got a problem, how do you resolve it? You break it down and see what the problem is. You find options on fixing it, and that's what they did with us. The problem was we got to integrate these people into with the haves if we want to keep our idealism going. So they did it. So it was a learning process for them by having us be looked at by the neighborhood people. Father Kern had to basically agree that we wouldn't, I use the current term, spoil the blood of America by being up in the Berkshires at a private school. I thought when we were going that we would be in school with the students from the year, from the winter. The kids that were being sent to the titans of industry, as you call them, the rich kids, the rich people's families, the haves, kids were being there to be groomed to go on to college.
Exactly.
I thought we would be there with them. But when I got off the bus, I was with kids from New York and Connecticut. That were in the same living conditions that I left.
Yeah, the
That's the
summer
same thing I
program was
left
for
at
y'all.
home. Right. We thought, I'm thinking, how am I going to fit in? And what am I going to wear? I don't have a lot of clothes to wear. I don't want to look outside the box. But that was my concern. Then I get there, it was relaxing because we still had the same facilities. We still had the fresh Berkshire Mountain to look at. We had a freshwater lake. We had a boat. We had all these things that we didn't have at home. Plus, they fed us 3 days.
You got some food, huh?
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner
It may not have
every
been country
day.
food. It may not have been country food like soul food, but you got some food, right?
We look. There were guys, they made us wear jackets and ties for those that had a jacket, but at least a tie to eat dinner. And we had to set up the tables. 12 at a table, 10 students, and 2 instructors at each setting, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They taught us how to set the table, how to be servers, the whole bit. And for the first few days, they served us chicken. A lot of us didn't eat because we couldn't eat chicken with a knife and fork.
Yeah.
And that was part of the process of them showing us there's another way to do things. And I appreciated that.
And did they show you the utensils
Everything.
placed
Yes, sir.
your knives go here, your forks go there.
They showed us all of that.
Yeah, that's good though. Those are life skills.
That's
the life skills.
That's what the program was about. Teach us life skills, and it gave us a little structure, for the day. We started the morning off with chapel, so we could deal with meditation and whatever spirituality process you wanted to get into. We'd have breakfast. We'd have a study hall, and then they have us do team activities. So we learn how to work together. So those skills are life. Okay. Like you said, those skills are life skills, and I've carried them through life.
Yes.
So absolutely. When I need it, I look back to the path I've been on and everything that it's taught me about life and how to deal with certain situations. And if it need be, fix it or leave it alone. You can't fix the world, but some things you have to decide, what do you want to do? Do you want to change the world? Do you want to help the world?
Yes.
You want to have a great standard of living? You want to do whatever you want to do for your family? Do you want to leave a legacy? You want good health? You want bad health? You want to travel the world? You have to make those decisions. It's all about decisions. And when they decided to bring us in and we decided to go, it was one of the best experiences of my life. Because of what it gave it. It did. It did help me. I think it helps anybody to learn something.
Excellent. That's what I really wanted. I'm glad.
Mm-hmm.
Did you pass on, those are benefits of what you just described of the Hotchkiss School. Were you able to take those lessons and let's say pollinate or cross-pollinate those
yes. And without even trying.
Those lessons.
I still live not far from where I grew up.
All right.
I live in, well, some people say lucky, some people say lazy.
Wow, lucky.
But, it depends on the point of view. For me, I feel lucky.
Yeah, it depends on your point
I
of view.
I used to walk by my house when I was going to school. And I had to go through the white people's neighborhood that had the big money, the insurance industry, managers and people from corporate America. They lived in this neighborhood.
Yes.
Because there's a big park right in the middle, one of the biggest parks in New England. It's right across the street out of my front door. So going to Weaver with my high school back in the city, I always looked at this neighborhood as beautiful. I played football and I practiced most of the time. So for me, it's home. I've traveled the world, but this is home. Go ahead.
Yeah, Larry. So when you finished the program, the GO program, were you ready for college after you completed that program?
Yes and no. I was
Explain that.
ready academically. I wasn't able financially, and mentally,
Okay.
I was traumatized. I left high school. I was, being in an environment where you don't have a mentorship thing going for a lot of people. When we came back home, again, you got to remember, we were back to the same environment that we left. What we had left up at Hotchkiss, we saw the halves at Hotchkiss, but we also had to leave and go back to the city, go back to what we call the world. So you have the skills, but where are you gonna use them? You have to be given another opportunity from someone outside, a mentor, or someone that says that person has some skills. I could do something with that. They could do something for me. I could help them. They could help me. So the first avenue for young men like myself was
Which
sports.
is totally opposite there. Yeah.
If you could play basketball, it still is. 60 years. Again, nothing's changed to me. 60 years. So a lot of prep schools were taking athletes.
Yes.
To subsidize their teams. So they would take the kids out to offer them a promise or something. And if they were lucky, they would make form some relationships with those kids that have who were in a position to offer them a chance up in life. Sometimes it's networking, not only those kids that went there during the winter, they have the same opportunities that we had, but they had mentorships. They had access to people. Hey, my father got a job for you when you come home, or you could be the manager of my father's bear medicine.
Yes.
Exactly. So they form relationships. I didn't have that. A lot of us didn't have that. That's the way that's the game. That's the game. Well, we didn't make it up. We're just playing it.
That's.
I'm beginning.
Well, we got to create our own game, and which leads me to this next question about what are your next steps, and how have you leveraged that knowledge that you gained and exposure from Hotchkiss? How have you leveraged that, rather?
Well, it was always nice when I was like 18, 19. It was always nice to put Hotchkiss down as a reference. We got you into the door for some jobs.
Oh yeah.
They saw that, and as a matter of fact, in my junior year in high school, I came back I had like 3 weeks before school started, regular school. I went to Travelers Insurance Company. They gave me an aptitude test. They were just starting to go into computers. And due to my exposure to Hotchkiss, who had a computer room, they were hooked into Dartmouth College. And one of the guys, in the 60s, one of the guys that was developing the computer was a math teacher. He wrote the regents for the New York State math. Mr. I can remember his name right now. Norton Stone. Mr. Stone. I studied with him, and we would sit around and have fireside chats like we're doing right here. And that was another part of mentoring. I took the test at Travelers. And the guy says, he came back and says, I think we want to put you in charge of our computer department that we're just forming. Could you start in 2 weeks? And I looked at him. I said, I need a job right now. And he looked at, because I'm 6'2" and 280, and I was 250 back then. Anyway,
you're defensive end, lineman. Yeah.
So he looked at me, and he finally looked at my age, and I said, I can't work. So I missed that job, but because of the skills they gave me in Hotchkiss, the exposure I had, I was ready for anything, and I felt bad.
You had that confidence.
Yeah, I had the confidence. So I just wanted a job. Like I said earlier, those jobs were set aside for those that had means or a less melanin in their skin that could get those the jobs at the insurance company. I just wanted some money to make some money for some school clothes and lunch money during the winter. So yes, it did help me.
I understand that.
It did help me. So I learned skills. But getting back to a question you asked earlier about how I gave back, being here, what we do when we call ourselves successful in the current society, we have to go somewhere. We have to move up, like in the Jeffersons, moving on up. Move that house in the hill, the house in the hill. But as a community, those communities that survive, they have stakeholders that stay and mentor the other kids. Now since I've been in my house for 40-something years. I raised my sons here. I raised my grandson here. And the kids know me. The people in the community know me because I ran a nonprofit. We did housing. We put up housing for people in the community. I got an award from the Boy Scouts of America for starting Boy Scout troops in New England. I call it a Lamplighters Award. I was the head of my PTO when my kids were in school. My family's in school. As a black male, I'm supposed to be there. As a parent, I'm supposed to.
Yeah, PTO. What is that?
A parent teachers organization.
Oh, PTO.
Yeah. So parent teachers. If I'm going to send my kids off to school, I'm not going to leave it up to the teachers to raise my child, because I saw how they were raising them when I was a kid. But they didn't have the love. They didn't have the concern about the kid's future that I might have. It's my child. So being here, and over the years, I've had young men of color come back and say, Mr. Williams, I want to thank you for being you. For being. They used to call my family, me and my kids, the Huxtables. So we would go on trips. I'd take them to other countries, and they'd come back and tell their friends, and what you could do, if you settle. So now they want to do it. One kid came back, he says, you made me get my first house. You made me do this, because of you. But these kids, again, they came from families like I came from, no father, no parents. So for me, that was my giving back.
You were a role model.
Say that again?
You were a mentor and a role model.
Yes.
That's what you were, a mentor
and a role model.
And that's what you should do. That's what you should
exactly.
be doing. Yes.
That's what's missing in the community.
Exactly. Absolutely.
We still have.
I can't say enough.
We still have young brothers bragging about how many kids they got. Some of my son's friends, they go around bragging about, hey, I got another one. You taking care of them?
That's it. They don't realize what it takes to raise kids. They don't realize, and that's what's wrong with our kids, our young people. We got that mentality from the parents level, and it's destroying us. It is really, really destroying us.
I think that generation is learning that doesn't work. I hope they learn. Their parents didn't do right. If you could look back at the 60s and 70s,
that's it.
People were going through changes on how they looked at life. They wanted to be independent. There was what do you want to call it? The cultural changes. The hippies. Everybody wanted to do free love, make peace. Treat everything, all that. So the kids grew up that way. Everybody's getting high. Everybody's doing whatever they wanted to do. So that was the focus. So now those kids got kids. What are they going to teach them?
Because then you were in the North.
Yeah.
Well, you were in the North, too. Don't forget. Now, down South, there was none of that. We were like the front lines of the civil rights movement back in 65, 64. I was a little elementary school, but I was out there protesting with them. So I do know what you're talking about. I do realize that.
We had the Panther trials when I got out of high school the next year in New Haven.
They were my heroes. Yeah.
They had the Panther trials here in New Haven. That's so everybody knew that. We had the riots when Bobby Kennedy got killed. They had to shut down the streets of Hartford for days. I watched them burn parts of my neighborhood when I was in Montreal on what do you call it? When you take kids off to school, out of school, for a vacation.
Camp?
Not camp, but go to the museum or something. I forgot the phrase I'm looking for. Outing.
Excursion.
Outing. I was on an outing.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
At the Hotchkiss in Montreal, watching the news, and they were burning a store that was right next to where I lived in the 60s.
Oh, my goodness.
So that was the times. The country was at war.
Did you do any protesting yourself? Did you do any protesting?
No. I did some rioting, but I didn't do any protesting.
Oh, yeah, you did some rioting.
Yeah.
You were throwing some rocks and some bottles,
yes,
right?
I had a cop shoot at me. I had a cop shoot at me from walking down the street during the riot. I wasn't involved at the time, but he shot at me. And that freaked me out.
What?
So you got to watch your community. If you want to, it's like you got to watch your family. That's why I was involved with the PTO. You got to watch your family. Yes. You want to watch your community, be involved in your community. I'm the president of not anymore, but I'm the treasurer of a Northern Revitalization Zone. It's a state-funded nonprofit where we deal with all kinds of issues, social issues that affect the community, economic issues, as far as bringing in new industrialization. We teach kids how to do new technology. We're building libraries, the whole thing right in the neighborhood. We do that now. As a matter of fact,
Excellent.
As a matter of fact, I got a call today from my president asking me what's going on, but the feds have closed down one of the nonprofits today.
Yeah, they stopped
today.
Yeah,
they went from the executive director down to the organizers today. And she said, "Larry, what's going on?" I says,
"Wow,
I don't know." She said, "Well," I said, let's just follow the money, and we'll see what happens, because she's concerned about our organization because we're state funded, but that's just, they call it DEI. Just all of a sudden the DEI is controlling. The DEI means destroy economic independence. What is it? What do you want to call it?
That's a nice. Is
it diversity? And I had this conversation with Dr. Woodbine, about. I'd rather see it being diversity, equality, and inclusion. But equality doesn't come out of the oppressor's vocabulary. That's why everybody's saying they call it equity. But equity could lead to a lot of different kinds of meanings. What it means to you might not be what it means. I have equity in my house. That means it's something that's quantifiable. How much? Right. So you say you want equity mean I only have a certain amount of society's resources, or I can only get a certain amount of what production that the whole people make. Only a certain part of it could go to a certain class of people or a certain group of people. Is that what you mean by equity? I would want to say equality. Let us all have a go at it and do it. If that's what we all want to do, let's all do it, and we all have to do it. But that won't work because of that a handicap. If you got a handicap on you, as far as the race, you can't win it unless you be like I was raised to hear in my household. You got to be better than them. You got to be better. You got to do twice as hard. You got to be twice as good. Yeah, and I'm thinking like, the mindset put me at a disadvantage to me. Like, who is this I'm supposed to be trying to appease on my life, where I got to prove to someone else how valuable I am? It doesn't work. I did that already. I did that in the 4th grade with the principal. You hear me? I did that already. Yeah, and when I came back, I had a teacher, a college teacher that knew me from high school. I worked in his accounting lab, teaching other people how to do their accounting. And I had a B average, and I'm thinking, Mr. Sand, he's going to help me out. He's going to take care of me. He brought me in and gave me a C, So I went back and approached him. I said, Mr. Sandroka, what's this all? He said, well, Larry, you're a big black man. You're going to have all kind of hardship in life. I want you to learn it from me first. I said, could you put that on my college record on why you gave me a C versus a B? That was one incident. I had an incident the next time with a math teacher. He said he never gave a black student a passing grade, and he wasn't going to start.
Now this is where when you were in high school?
High school and after. This was in the 60s, early 70s in the North.
Wow. You
have, it's just I'm just describing. I'm not complaining. I'm just describing the situation the way I saw it.
Oh yeah, the obstacles and things that were in your way.
And that's why I'm sharing it. I didn't want to come here and I don't know what value added I would give to talking about Hotchkiss because we've already done it. You've heard from.
Yeah, but it's good to recognize it because it's somewhat historical. And I think that's the value y'all guys bring. You bring your experiences from that period of time, which is our history. Y'all guys are part of history. It has a way of repeating itself. It could absolutely.
If you don't learn from it. If you don't learn from it, it could hit you right. And you may be right in the midst of it before you realize, I've been here before. I've seen this before.
Yes.
The climate that we're in right now, in 2025, 60 years later, from the beginning of the GO program, is no different. No different.
Absolutely no different. It was just like, what do you call it? Stagnant, just no movement. We're just static. Our fight for equality has been static. We get a little bit, they take two, you take one step, they knock you back two. You know what I mean?
But it's not just us, Walt. I want to explain. I want to add to what you just said. It's not just us.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you have classes of people, you got to look at how this country was formed. You had a European system where they had nobles and everybody was layered. The king, the nobles. You have to have some people that can survive to show that the system works. You can't have the whole pie and not share it. That's what the French Revolution was about. You got to share it with the people.
Yes, and that's what
you got to share it with the people. Otherwise,
in this country,
capitalism will fall if you just have rich and poor. You got to have some semi-rich people, some people that think they're better.
You got the middle class.
Well, the middle class is what do you call middle class? I mean, the words change, but what do you call middle class? You could be a paycheck or two from disaster. Is that poor or is that middle class?
Correct.
Now, if you look at the stock market people, the billionaires, they can ride out a situation where prices are rising. They can't spend it. They got more money they can spend a lifetime. So you can always bounce back if you have enough time. When I had clients, when I did some work during the investment company also, I had a lot of different jobs. I worked in an investment company. I worked in an investment company, and I told a lot of them, time versus interest equals the money. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? You want to buy the new car, trips, the glamorous stuff to your kids. Leave it for your kids, who you have no guarantee that they won't squander it in a year from your demise. But I don't know.
Oh yeah.
So I told them. So you need the money and the time. So as long as you can recover from this, I can recover from this new situation. For one reason, I was poor before. I won't be in unfamiliar territory. I'll be able, most people, you may think you've changed and outgrown your roots, but how when your parents came through, they could take a bag of flour and they could take a bag of rice and have some chickens in the backyard or whatever and make do. And they not only make do for you, but everybody on your street made sure everybody else survived. And so, those that haven't had it like that, those are the ones that should be fearful. That's what happened during the Depression. The ones who had big money who forgot their roots, they died. I can't go on. I can't go on.
And they couldn't survive.
So that's what I see about it. But again, thanks for.
Well, that's what just one thing I do want to point out is that the way this administration is doing and what they're doing, and who they're targeting and all this kind of stuff. They can't do anything to us that we haven't seen before. Now, let's go. They've done everything to us as the people.
Right.
So if they take this away, they take the American Black Museum history, this, that, all that kind of stuff. They want to take it away. Go ahead. I mean, no big deal. Go ahead. What are you going to do to us? And that's what they fail to realize. We've been at the bottom. We know what it means.
Our kids haven't.
All right, to be disadvantaged.
Our kids haven't.
Yeah, we've been there. So, yeah. So, I don't. And one thing, Larry, I just want to point it out in this show. I am so happy that we're not on the front line of the protests out there now. Well, I think we should just sit back, let them protest, the right, left, type situation. And then once the dust settles, then we have our voice. But let them get out there and now they're seeing how it feels. Because it's more than a black-white thing. It is an economic thing. It is where you are positioned. You got to either have
or have nots. Exactly. I was telling my wife, actually, my wife is a fervent Trump hater.
Yeah, mine too.
She really, her and all her girlfriends upset that Kamala Harris is not our president. And I told her, I says, you're just getting into politics now. But if you had been watching the show, this was all set up. Trump is just pushing the buttons. This whole plan, we're going into a technological change. We've had a industrial change. We had a change, what is it called, an industrial revolution. We had the fight for land, the land grabbers, the land barons. Now we had different groups anyway.
The
technology is coming now.
Technological revolution.
All these changes that are going on now. That's why he had the tech people at his inauguration. He was sending a signal that the techs are going to be. You don't need these people anymore. We don't need all these poor people to do the jobs, or what we call, I'll call them as the black jobs in particular. We don't need all of those jobs. We're going to have these machines do that.
It's the poor jobs.
But we won't even have the people that they're allowed to sit around the boardroom that don't own the company. They're going to have, all you're going to need to have is electricians and people that can fix those machines to do the work, the robots. That's the new generation.
Well, I just want to add. Yeah, Larry, I just want to add one thing, though, before you proceed, is that, when you hear this guy, Trump, says, no, we're going to bring back the coal job, we're going to bring back manufacturing jobs, those jobs will never come back. I don't care who you
I agree with you.
He's fooling you. They're not coming back because everything that corporations are doing now is to get rid of you or companies. They see you as an expense. They pay your salary. If they want to reduce their costs, they're looking at you. When can I get rid of this guy? You know what I mean? And that's where we're going, where people won't have jobs. Those jobs are never coming back. I don't care how you think. They may come back. They're not. They got to build plants and all that kind of stuff. How are these jobs coming back? And for Trump to say that, over in China, they're building the Apple phone, so they screw something in, screw this and that, this screw in, screw that screw in. And then he wants to bring those jobs back to America. You want to pay $10,000 for an iPhone or anything else that China's building over there with cheap labor? It's not going to happen.
Exactly. And you just...
All right? Y'all guys are being fooled. You've been fed nonsense. All right? It's ridiculous that how people can fall for that nonsense. But anyway, that's my spiel. So I just want to...
And I'm glad you pointed that out because it was on my notes. I had a hard time prepping for this.
Well, this show is about you, Larry, not me. But it's about you. What are your next steps, Larry? I mean, I know what you're doing. You're very heavily involved in civic activities. But what's next for you?
That's a tough question. I had this conversation with my pastor last week. What's next? I'm 74 years old. I've had some health issues over the last 7 years. I'm fighting 2 forms of cancer. Last December, I got COVID. I'm having problems with my memory due to the COVID. And I had a sepsis due to a prick in my ear. So I've been trying to just survive, and I'm good at it.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to you take a day at a time, you pray, you ask the Lord to guide you and to give you strength, because these are things that are going to happen to you as you get older.
And that's the whole key. You got to put yourself in the Lord's hands and hope that I believe, again, when my mother was alive, we were Jehovah's Witness during the week and we were Baptists on Sunday. So spirituality was forefront in her life. And so it was forefront in my life. So, I always believe that, God will make a way. That was some famous, God will make a way somehow, and plant my feet on higher ground. All those spirituals we used to sing, going to church on Sunday. So, they come back to me. I reflect on a lot of that stuff now, and I'm blessed. Even with the cancers that I have no treatment. But I've accepted it as part of the cycle of life. So I'm trying to downsize. I had organizations call and say, "Larry, you coming back?" I said, "I told you I'm having a problem focusing. Especially with the COVID, I can't do it anymore. I can't. So, but they won't let me quit. So,
well, that means you're a value.
The experience, the life's experience, and knowing what's around the corner, perception. I got good perception. I can smell BS, and I use it.
Yeah, that's it. That's one thing about
growing older and the life experience. So I can go into a situation and look at it, break it down, and figure out how to fix it. And so they respect me for that.
Alrighty.
So as far as the next, I'm just day to day. I want to go in my backyard and cut the grass and sit in the hammock. I go out and meditate. I do my yoga. I can't even take a drink anymore, so I'll just whatever. I'll sit back and have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
So that's me. That's it. And I eat right. Like I said, I don't take any chemo. I don't take any other stuff. And the doctor says you may never need treatment, but it depends on your lifestyle, and that's with everything. It depends on what you do.
Exactly.
Everything depends.
Absolutely.
When I went to get my first job, I did it because I needed to get a place to stay, some food, some clothes, because nobody was giving Larry any of that stuff. I wasn't going to. And back then, when they first had the student loans, you had to walk into a bank and ask for money and guarantee to pay it back, and you got no idea what your future looks like. So I said, I'm not falling for that. Yeah, I'm not falling for that trip. I'll take out X amount, and I wound up finishing school by paying my way. I would go as needed. As long as I had a job, I had my basics, I went as needed. If I needed a certificate for something, I did it. When I became a union steward, they sent me around. They sent me to MIT for training. They sent me to the Labor Relations Board down in Washington just to study at their campus. My job, when I worked for an investment company, They taught me how to get my license. I was a general contractor. They taught me how to get my license. You know what I'm saying? Those life experiences.
And they paid for your
those
training,
the life experiences mean a lot. So anytime you get a chance to do something that's going to advance you taking care of yourself, learn it. Take that opportunity. Because at the end of the day, you're going to still need what you needed before. You know, and I had this argument with my son. He says, well, what if you never did anything? We wouldn't have any traffic lights. We wouldn't have this. I says, somebody will, because someone out there may have had the motivation to say, you know what, I'm going to fix this. The cotton gin came from somebody picking cotton saying, we got to find an easier way. You know, but if you in the field doing it, you know what needs to be done to find that machine to do that.
That's true.
If you're going around conquering other countries, you need to find a way how to conquer other countries. You're going to make the gun. You're going to make the weapons, because that's what you need.
And you're going to write the history.
That's what you need. That's what you need to learn, you know, to survive. So it's all good.
All right, Larry, you know, I want to go on and on, because you're extremely, it's fascinating just to talk to you, to discuss the history, the things that you've been through. And, you know, I just want to just thank you so much for, you know, gracing us with your presence on the Walt Weekly Podcast. And we wish you the best. I'm sure that we have another one coming up, right? We got a fourth person from the GO program. Yep. So people be looking out for that. That'll be coming out in a couple of weeks, I guess. And I also want to say that, you know, I've been sick since Larry was on that topic. I've been sick for like 6 weeks. You know, the chapters, my life has changed. I'm on a new chapter now. And, you know, dealing with illness. And I never had that before in my life, you know. So you adapt. Like Larry was saying, you got to adapt. And you do the best you can as to what you can control. You pray, you know, you go to God. And I was like one of those guys. I think my son told me, he said, hey, Dad, you haven't been going to church and this and that. And now that you're sick, you want to turn, you're attending church remotely and you're getting close to God. I said, yeah. Because, you know, when you're sick and ill, it's you, nobody else but you. You know, when I went to the hospital, it was just me. I mean, my wife went with me, my family, of course. But who's on the bed?
You.
Me. Who you going to turn to? That's it. So it's God, and with God's grace, you know, I'm doing better. So, and on top of that, please, the folks that are listening to the episode, you know, I'd like to thank again, you know, thank Larry Lawrence Williams, and I'll have some links to how to contact him. I don't think he wants to be contacted. You can contact him through what is the vehicle y'all guys use to contact? I was looking at the website. It's going to be in the show notes. But where I saw y'all guys,
we're on Facebook.